Now it's time for No Pucks Given with Dan Kingerski of Pittsburgh Hockey Now. Penguin Scoop's locker room buzz and straight-up analysis. No fluff, all hockey. Now, here's Dan.
And it is No Pucks Given, somewhere around episode 42. We are talking with Vince Comunale is joining us on this week's show. We are recording this actually before the Steelers game on Sunday, which also means before I head down to the arena for the Penguins-Dallas Stars game. You'll hear this Monday morning. Of course, the way things work, Vince, my life is always a little bit of Murphy's Law, which means there's going to be something extraordinary in the game Sunday. Like Sidney Crosby has 11 points. Tristan Jarry stops 63 shots. Let's just assume that thing happened. And, oh, wow, it wasn't that great. Now, let's get into, I think, the broader topics, because nothing's going to change after Sunday. No. Even if they win 8-1 or they lose 8-1, I don't think it's going to change the fundamental structure of this Penguins season. So the three topics we're going to talk with Vince about this week here on No Pucks Given, which is on the Odyssey Podcast Network, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. So like, subscribe, download, and do all of that fun stuff. We're going to talk about Sidney Crosby and Ben Kindle, because let me fix my face there. Center me. I just noticed yesterday, because Crosby, Chris Letang, Ville Koivunen, Brian Rust, they remained on the ice for like 90 minutes after practice, goofing around again. And I don't mean just goofing around by talking, actually just out there playing hockey and having a ball. We're also going to talk about Tristan Jarry. Elliot Friedman on Hockey Night in Canada Saturday confirming there's been a lot of smoke in the last 24 to 48 hours. So by Monday, it'll be 72 hours. And Elliot really, I think, detailed some of the obvious, but also confirmed the level of conversations between the Penguins and the Oilers. We're going to get into that and maybe what the Penguins really should do here, because it's not necessarily cut and dry. And then with a healthy lineup, I would expect Noel Acciari and Justin Brazo to have played Sunday. If they don't play Sunday, and you're hearing this Monday morning like, Kingerski, they didn't play, they're going to play probably Tuesday. They're that close, and I chatted with Noel Acciari on Saturday, and he basically gave me the green flag, though he had to stop just a hair short of that. So I'll hold up the topics. You have to read my handwriting for those of you on the video side. Vince, I want to start with Tristan Jarry, and I want to get your take on this, because it really is it is more complicated than just simply, well, let's trade Jarry, as it has been for the last 18 months when everybody was so gung-ho to ship him out of town. Well, the situation has changed, hasn't it?
It has. The Penguins are, I don't want to say firmly in a playoff spot, but they're in a playoff spot. They're in a playoff race, and he's been your best goalie. So the question becomes, do you want to stay in the playoff race? And I'm not saying you can't stay in the playoff race with Shilovs or Miroshov, but it's different. But he's also been part of the Penguins organization for 9-10 years now, and we've seen this before. He's made all-star teams before. He's had great stretches of play before, but then it all comes crashing down eventually. So,
well, especially in the second half of the season, that
Exactly.
was really when he struggled, like after the all-star games and after game 50 or so.
Yeah, so, I mean, past precedent would tell you this is not going to last. And, I mean, somebody who's been in the league as long as he has now, you have to look at what has happened in the past as the kind of judgment.
You're in the hesitant camp. You're like, it's great how well he's playing, but you're unsold, I guess is maybe the word I've used.
When push comes to shove, he hasn't been there, unfortunately. nice enough guy, and all of that stuff. But, I went on Twitter after the game the other night in Tampa, and I said, maybe they should trade him right now before Edmonton finds out what he really is. And I mean, maybe a little harsh, but I mean, that's what his past, his history has been.
That's all fair. Maybe I'm being a little bit Pollyanna or uncharacteristically optimistic about something or anything or anybody. He just seems a little bit different. There's a personal piece about him this time. He still doesn't like talking to the media. I mean, really, who would? I understand every player.
I mean, look at us. Who would want to talk to us?
Yeah, there are better things to spend your time doing, but I don't know. He is playing well in an entirely sustainable sort of way. I mean, he made a couple of saves in Tampa Bay. I mean, first of all, they were great saves, but the manner in which he made a couple of the lateral saves, in which he held his technique going post to post, paddle in the proper spot, arms in the proper spot, moving brusquely back and forth. I was like, okay, Tristan Jarry, especially in a third period of years past, is flailing. Yes. Arms up, legs wide, just, he would look like an octopus just sort of drowning or on land, whatever you want to say.
If the ice were melting.
Yeah, if the ice were melting, there was a real control about his game, even as Tampa just blitzed the Penguins in a way that no one really quite has this season.
If that game had lasted another minute and a half, they would have lost in regulation. That was, but to touch on what you're saying, yes, he does look a little bit different as far as confidence goes. And I noticed it in the Philadelphia game when he's coming out and making saves, taking shots at guys with his blocker. But you didn't see that in the past from him. It definitely seems like it's a different level of intensity and a different level of confidence. But again, like I'm just going on his past history, and I just at any moment I feel like, okay, when's this gonna crash? I hope I'm wrong for everybody's sake, but
what you guys didn't see on TV Thursday, or maybe it caught a glimpse of it, because Jake Gensel was that Tampa power play was ridiculous. Kucherov and Gensel. I mean, you've got two geniuses, just pulling strings there. Gensel got a little too close to Jarry, and they were teammates for what, 7 years, 6 years, whatever it was, and Jarry just two-handed him right across the back of the legs. No favor, no quarter given, just whack. He got him pretty good, and Gensel got out of the way. He of course went back because that's Jay Gensel, but Jarry established his territory. So what do you do now? So you're in the camp. If Edmonton comes to the table with the right offer, and by right I don't mean extraordinary, I just mean the right offer. You make the trade right now.
I do. I mean, Miroshov is your future. He's 21 years old. Shelov's, I think he is an NHL goaltender, maybe not a starting NHL goaltender, but a solid backup, kind of along the lines of Nedeljkovic or Casey DeSmith, that type of.
That's fair.
Yeah. So maybe it accelerates your plan of rebuilding, retooling, whatever you want to call it, where you're all of a sudden Miroshov is now the guy here.
Yeah.
But I mean, let's face it, that's a large chunk of salary cap that you have with Jarry there. You're probably going to have to retain salary. I understand that.
Well, no, that's actually one thing Elliot Friedman said on Saturday was that the Penguins have said no. They've drawn a line, 0 salary retention. I can tell you didn't read Pittsburgh Hockey Now this morning.
Well, but I don't know. I'll believe that when I see that. I've read a lot of different reports that said the Penguins would probably retain some salary, but regardless.
Ryan Rishog of Sportsnet, was it Thursday morning, Friday morning, said, reported that there have been almost no talks of Edmonton chasing a goalie. Now Ryan is, also a top flight reporter. Not necessarily, he doesn't specialize in the stuff, the stock and trade of the rumors that Elliot does. But so I was like, oh, but then for Elliot, 36 hours later to kind of come back over the top with 24 to 48 hours, I was like, oh, okay. I will tell you this, and it's going to kind of lead into one of our topics. I don't think I do trade Jarry right now. And that's because I'm not necessarily sold on Shilov's ability to be there day in and day out. He just seems to me to be one of those guys who can be good in big moments. There've been, a lot of goaltenders like that. When the adrenaline is pumping, they're great. But without that, they're not even passable. And I really have a concern, or I suspect that Shilovs might fall into that category. But also, too, to see how happy and how much fun Sidney Crosby is having, out there goofing around on the ice with Ben Kindle and whatever they're doing, all these games that they play. If you trade Jarry and it goes poorly, that smile goes away pretty quick.
Yeah.
I mean, you and I have seen Sidney Crosby the last couple of years. I don't want to say miserable, but he's had to struggle through it.
Yeah.
It hasn't been fun, happy fun times. So they're winning. Sidney Crosby is happy. You know what? If you miss your window to trade Tristan Jarry, I guess so be it. If he does tank, then you just basically cut bait next summer, whether it's waivers or, a 7th round pick, whatever it might be. But you take that shot. I think I'm okay with taking a shot right now.
It's funny. I have the same feeling about Erik Karlsson that you have about Jarry. I think that you do not trade Erik Karlsson.
Oh, I actually agree with you wholeheartedly. Yeah. You've come this far now.
Yeah.
And besides, Erik Karlsson wanted to win. What are the Penguins doing? Yeah. They're winning. So the team he talked about, like Detroit and all these other teams that might want Erik Karlsson, they're actually below the Penguins in the standings.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's obviously a huge cap hit also, but there is no player coming in to do what Erik Karlsson can do. Like the Penguins have Murashov and Shilovs that can potentially do what Jarry's doing.
Right.
There's nobody coming in to take the place of what Erik Karlsson's doing this season.
No, Harrison Brunick, even on his best day, all respect to Harrison Brunick, he's not the next Erik Karlsson.
No. So, I mean, if they're going to stay in this playoff race, which why not? The Eastern Conference is terrible this season.
That might be the worst thing, right?
Yeah.
Would be to advance the Stanley Cup final and just get rolled.
Yeah. By like Colorado.
Colorado, which is probably what would happen too.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Colorado is just, I mean, I know they lost the Islanders the other day, but that notwithstanding, they're a juggernaut.
Yeah, they actually have to lose some games, does Colorado, because if you get too far out in front, we've seen too many teams. You have to start coasting. You start saving energy in March. And then when April hits, or the way the playoffs go, May, when they start now, they can't hit the afterburners and get into that playoff mode because they just haven't been tested, or no adversity and all of that, throughout the year. And they're caught kind of naked, basically, like the Capitals and
Winnipeg
Ottawa
last season.
What's that?
Winnipeg last season.
Yeah. You get too far out in front, you're toast. It's like, oh no, you almost have to start trading players to get worse. Our player to be named later is actually the player we want back in 2 months. But anyway, so we can probably talk about Erik Karlsson. If we're going to talk trades, let's put Erik Karlsson and Brian Rust and Rickard Rakell. Let's put them. Let's review all of that, because that's how we spent all summer, was expecting these guys to be traded. And honest to goodness, I don't think Kyle Dubas could have predicted this.
No.
No,
No.
no way. Even though he said a sky high price on Brian Rust and a high price on Ricard Raquel, and he stuck to his guns, expecting to get a return
Yes.
for Erik Karlsson, despite the last 2 years, which went, well, terribly.
That's putting it nicely.
Yeah, he was not a good defenseman for the Penguins the last 2 seasons. Full stop. So now we come full circle where Brian Rust is rounding into form. Erik Karlsson is, I mean, if I had to vote right now, I would think long and hard about giving Erik Karlsson like my 5th place Norris vote. 4th,
Okay.
5th place.
Yeah. I mean, he's really, really good.
Yeah, and that's to compliment him.
Mm-hmm.
Ricard Raquel was playing well before he was out, point per game guy. So what do you do, Vince? Someone meets the sky high price on Ricard Raquel, let's say, when he comes back in December. He plays a couple of weeks. He gets his legs back underneath of him. I know Toronto wants top 6. I know Ottawa wants a top 6er. I'm trying to think of other teams who are in the market for a top 6 winger. One of them comes calling with the right price. Do you?
That's a tough decision right now because, like, look at how well this team is playing without Raquel in the lineup, without Brazo. I know you didn't mention Brazo, but without him in the lineup, they're treading water against very good teams.
Put a pin in Brazo. I'm going to come back. Let's come back to him after this.
Yeah.
The beauty of a podcast, I guess we can do this. It's not
we can do whatever we want.
Commercial coming up. We're just having a conversation.
What is this lineup going to look like when those guys are back in there and healthy? We saw how good Evgeny Malkin played with Mantha and Brazo. Those two, that line is huge. I mean, they were creating a lot of space for Malkin out there.
Well, even yesterday at practice, they put Kevin Hayes there on Malkin's maintenance day. It's like it didn't get any smaller.
No. So it's interesting. And, you talked about the Ottawas and Torontos of the world. Do you really want to trade one of these guys to a team that is potentially chasing the same playoff spot that you are? Because, the Penguins are probably going to be in that like 3rd place in the division, kind of 7-8 seed, and those teams you mentioned, the Ottawas and Torontos, they're probably going to be fighting for that same exact playoff, wild card spot.
Yeah, you know what? I'm going to take that obstacle off the table in my universe because I don't believe the Penguins are Stanley Cup contenders.
No.
So if you miss the playoffs by a point or two because you traded Ricard Raquel to the team that claimed it, I would have to assume the return was in fact setting you up for the future.
Yeah.
So I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really tough decision, but like I said, hopefully that they'll get the opportunity before the trade deadline to have a really good snapshot of what this team looks like with everybody healthy, and then make your decision from there. If for whatever reason everybody healthy doesn't look great, which would be shocking to me, but it could happen. It's happened before where, at the end of the season, everybody comes back and is healthy, and all of a sudden the team looks completely different because
is that 2019 or 2000? No, 19, because then 20 was the bubble and all that nonsense.
Yeah, that season it was almost like, oh, we could breathe a sigh of relief now. Everybody's back and healthy. We don't have to play that style that we were now because all the guys are back. We could just go back.
They got healthy and they fell apart.
Yeah. So, I mean, that is always a possibility, but I'm really interested to see what this team looks like when everybody is healthy, and then kind of make your decision from there. Sure. I would personally like them to see them trade the, kind of, and this is no disrespect to any of these guys, but like kind of the Noah Chari types, that are kind of blocking some of these younger guys from getting regular, playing time. So we'll see, but it's definitely Kyle Dubas is in a tough position and probably a position he never dreamed he was going to be in.
Right. I mean, these are best case scenarios. I'm going to maybe pick a little bit here at kind of nuance it. You know what? you were correct. Without Rickard Rakell in the lineup, they're still 14-7-5.
Yeah.
I would trade him. And I've been on this bandwagon now for a solid year plus. As well as Evgeny Malkin is playing, there'd be no skin off anybody's nose if he moved to Sidney Crosby's line.
No.
Almost full time, because then that does open up a spot. You now get to put Ben Kindle in a better position. You now get to bring up Tristan Brazo and put him in a good position. And you still have this team with tons of flexibility. Let's just say Ben Kindle isn't handling the second line center duty very well. Okay. If you have to hide Tommy Novak there or Kevin Hayes on Crosby's wing, as they have done.
They have been, yeah.
I'm not honestly, if that might happen Sunday night, is Tommy Novak being on Crosby's line.
Right.
I will say this now, and I will eat crow later. That's not going to work.
No, we both could tell you that's not going to work.
That is launching a rocket with water. It's just not going to work. Anyway, you can always go back. You can always, kind of work backward there, rather than if you hold on. Now you may have missed your opportunity to continue building for the future, which, until I hear Kyle Dubas, shrug and say, well, the situation has changed, I am still assuming that this team is largely on their own this season. He built them. They've got prospects to plug and play. That's the team. They maybe add a little bit of a veteran towards the deadline like they did last year, getting Novak and Luke Shen. Mm-hmm. But look, by and large, this is the team. So you can, if something doesn't work, you're going to have enough decent players to keep going. But I will say this: there are a number of veterans that I think I've wondered if they're featuring Matt Dumba to trade him, because they've been hanging on to Harrison Brunick for dear life. When by all accounts, I mean, this can't be great for his development. I mean, sitting for a few weeks, okay, but a couple months, not so good. I have to think they're trying to get something for some of these guys like Dumba, like a Matt everyone's a Matt now.
Yeah.
Matt Crosby, Matt Malkin, Matt Rust. Yeah.
Matt Collins back in the lineup. It's weird. I don't know what's going on here.
Connor Clifton and so on and so forth. I have to think that maybe as we get on the other side of Christmas, that a lot of those guys, you might see Duba start to pick away second-round draft picks, which can be flipped for veteran help, or mid-tier prospects as teams need a right-handed defenseman, so on and so forth. Let me get to Justin Brazo, however. And I've been a little bit guilty of glossing over him. And the reason for that, Vince, is I don't see this guy being a 25-goal scorer. I in my mind, sure, it could happen. He looked great in the first few weeks of the season. I just can't see any level of that productivity continuing.
It was a shame when he got hurt, because the same is what you're saying. When they first started training camp, I had to look him up. I watch a lot of hockey. And I was like, who's this guy? And
no, he was a depth guy in Boston who finally got a bit of a shot last year. Gets traded to Minnesota, where he puts up promptly, was it 1 or 2 points in 19 games?
Yeah.
They were looking for power play help, and it didn't work.
And that's what I wonder. Is he going to revert back to that kind of third, fourth line type of guy who's, like you said, putting up 2 points in 19 games? Or is he going to thrive playing on that line with Mantha and Malkin, just because of who he's playing with, the size of the people he's playing with, and maybe he just needed that opportunity? But we don't know that, because he got hurt right at the prime of,
at the zenith of his coming out party.
Yeah, exactly.
right before they call him to the stage, he gets hurt. Vince, we're going to take a quick break on the podcast side. For those of you on video, we're going to keep going. It will seem like nothing, but on the Odyssey Podcast Network and the Apple and Spotify and everywhere else, we'll be back right after this. Okay, Vince, we keep going. Hey, welcome back, everybody. People on the video side are like, what in the world is Kingerski doing? But that's what we have to do. 24:55. I took the breaks. We can let producer Scott know. Scott also goes by Matt as well. So I think our final topic here, Vince, is going to maybe take us a little bit longer. And that is once Brazo and Jarry come back into the lineup, and you do have sort of Tristan Bros banging on the door. By the way, weird situation, wasn't it? Bring a guy up for one game, he watches two, and you send him back.
Yeah.
I didn't get that at all.
I didn't either. I didn't get it.
Anyway, Brazo and Jarry come back. I think we can pretty much know that Boko Imama will go back. Whether that happens Sunday afternoon after we record this podcast or Monday or whatnot, that's almost a given.
Yeah. Just a quick thought on Boko Imama.
Sure.
I love what he brings to that fourth line. You can tell the guys skate a little taller when he's in the lineup out there.
Did you see some of the stuff Clifton was doing the last couple of games?
It's a notable difference when he's in the lineup with some of the other guys are doing out there, because they know that he's sitting on the bench ready to have their back. And, I know that he's the first candidate to be sent back, but I would consider finding a place for him as the last guy on the roster on that fourth line, because I don't know. I mean, he could play. He scored a lot of goals in junior. He could play. I know.
I'm not going to argue against keeping Boko. I just from a personal standpoint, there is nobody better to talk to in the locker room than him. Dan, come here. Yes, those arms. I mean, dude is jacked. First of all, and those hands are like when Boko Imama waves you over. You don't say hang on.
But I don't know. I mean, maybe he could be a scratch on a lot of nights, but when you're playing against the Philadelphias of the world, and Tampa has a lot of tough guys, and it's nice for the other guys on the roster to know that he's back there. And like I say, I mean, to me, it's noticeable. The guys are skating a little taller when he's out there in the lineup.
I know. The thing with Jarry, though, is Jarry is so versatile and useful on the penalty kill. That fourth line was so good defensively. I don't know. Maybe to pull on the thread of your point, what Muse was doing was, he was kind of rolling a bit of a rotation on that fourth line when Boko was in there, because Boko played like 9 minutes. You saw Ben Kindle take a few shifts down there. You actually saw Evgeny Malkin center the fourth line a couple of times against Tampa, and doing things like that to limit Boko's exposure, so to speak, but also keep him in the lineup. I don't know, though. The easy decision is to just put Jarry back there, because that fourth line was so good before he was hurt.
Yeah, because Boko's, like you said, he's not going to penalty kill. He's obviously not playing on the power play, though. I'd like to see him in front of the net on power play. So
go ahead, move him.
Yeah, but to your point, I understand it, but just wanted to, note, like, when he's in the lineup, it definitely has a different feel and a different look to it.
Yeah, I wonder if Blake Lizotte goes upstairs with the stick like he did.
Yeah, if he's not in there.
If Boko is not in the lineup. But I think the three players who maybe are on the bubble to lose their lineup spot would be Kevin Hayes, Tommy Novak, and Ville Koivunen. If Ville Koivunen hadn't scored against Tampa and hadn't picked up his play in the last two games with Rutger McGroarty, I would have said he was the easy decision.
Yeah.
But you see the upward trend coming with Koivunen, and he's 21 years old. So that has to factor, which I don't know how important that's going to be, because it seems like Tommy Novak, Vince, is in the lineup. He's in there. No matter what you think, no matter what I think, it looks like the organization thinks something entirely different, and he's in the lineup.
Yeah, this is going to be a very odd comparison, but hear me out. It's almost like the Daniel Sprong situation where he would get a game on the top line and then he would be scratched the next game. That's kind of where I'm seeing like the Tommy Novak. Like he will very likely play on the top line tonight against Dallas, but nobody would have any problem or even question if he was scratched the next game. It's just kind of that situation. Like, and again, like I never mean anything personal against these guys,
right?
It's almost like he's in the lineup, but he's just kind of out there taking up space. Like to me, now he did have 2 assists the other night, if I recall, but he never does anything like that jumps off the page to you, like noticeable. Or
impact is the word I've been using and writing. It's hard to find an impact. Now, there have been some defensive gaffes, 2 big ones over the last 4 games or so that were quite costly. And we diagrammed them on Twitter, so on and so forth. I don't need to rehash them. And I also kind of felt like Kevin Hayes has been a little bit inconsistent, but he also, it seemed to me, figured out what he could bring to the Sidney Crosby line and brought it. I mean, he does have a real creative streak with the puck. And it doesn't have to be, through the legs around 3 guys and whip a great shot. It's just those little touch passes backward that you don't see. And all of a sudden it opens the play and it's spinning off of a guy on the wall and delivering the puck to the open man. Just little stuff. I began to notice that he was playing pretty well. Again, I don't get a vote in this. Dan Muse doesn't exactly poll the media on what he should do. Kevin Hayes would be the guy I keep beside Sidney Crosby. And if I'm saying who comes out, to me, it's easy that Tommy Novak is the guy right now that would come out.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't make for a good podcast, but I 100% agree with you. Like I said, to use your word, he doesn't make that like impact out there. And, a lot of people could argue, okay, Koivunen doesn't either, but he's 21, like you said.
Well, I will also tell you, Koivunen can. I mean, Koivunen inconsistent. I should acknowledge that in full stop. But the last couple of games, that third line was really good defensively. They actually had quite a bit of time against Tampa's top line.
Yes. And
when they were on the ice, that includes Koivunen, allowed 1 high danger chance, which in that game is insane.
Yeah. I was going to say that third line with all the young guys, every guy on that line did something impactful. And I love that line. And I love the fact that he actually had them out there. I think there was 2 minutes left in that Tampa game. He had that line out there.
Exactly.
They seem to be thriving playing with each other. But again, to your point, I don't know. Novak to me is the easy guy to take out of the lineup. I think
but I think we both agree that Novak won't be the guy that comes out.
No, he won't. It'll be Koivunen or Achari or somebody like that. Yeah. Hayes does have a little bit, some, decent hands too. Just the goal that he scored in Philly, I was like, whoa, where'd that come from?
Well, that's the old Kevin Hayes, right? I mean, he was a second line center until he sort of tangled with John Tortorella because he didn't play hard enough or wasn't hard enough to play against and all of those sorts of things. And that if you look at Kevin Hayes' career, the downward trajectory began almost immediately when he quarreled with Tortorella.
Right. Yeah.
Whatever that's worth.
Yeah. I like having that size with Sidney Crosby too. Like we see how well it's working with the Malkin line, having that size. I like having a bigger winger with Crosby to kind of create that space. Just that alone would, kind of lean me towards putting Hayes up there. like I said, it doesn't make much for an argument or a debate
No,
on a podcast, but I agree with you. I mean, the decision seems pretty easy to me.
All right. So to wrap this up, now we're recording this on December 7th, as I recall, a day that will live in infamy.
Pearl Harbor Day.
Also, this was no, I never talk about my personal past or anything like that. I did choose December 7th to get married as an inside joke to myself.
Oh no.
We had several dates to choose from, and knowing full well this is also this. Oh my God, it's coming up on 30 years. Anyway, long ago, yeah, nullified. That's a different life, but I did choose December 7th. Anyway, December 7th, day that will live in infamy. Do the Penguins make the playoffs, Vince?
I think they do. As I said earlier, I don't think they're winning the division. I think that they're either like a third place in the division seed or one of the two wild cards. I think you're gonna watch some games and you're gonna be like, oh no, they blew another 3-goal lead in the third period. What are they doing? This team isn't playoff material. And then you're gonna watch another game like the game on Monday in Philadelphia, and you're like, this team looks like a Stanley Cup contender. I'm not saying they're a Stanley Cup contender, but you're going to see games like that too. And you're going to say, whoa, maybe this team could do something in the playoffs. And it's kind of going to be like that all season. But I think the position that they're in right now in a playoff spot, I think, if you're in a playoff spot or in, Thanksgiving, and especially at Christmas, the statistics show you're probably going to end up as a playoff team, obviously not considering injuries, things like that. But
yeah, well, that's the thing. Sunday morning, the Penguins essentially had 3 games in hand. Well, they do have 3 games in hand on the Rangers. I'm sorry, the Red Wings and the Devils. They've got 3 games in hand on. They all had 33 points. So in theory, they could have, let's call it a 4-point on average, a 3 or 4 point lead on those teams. They had 4 games in hand on the Rangers. So let's call that a 5-point advantage. Those are not insignificant.
No.
I guess Sunday is one of those games in hand. So if they happen to beat the Dallas Stars, those numbers I just said get even better for the Penguins. And, if the Devils don't keep Jack Hughes away from team dinners, it's going to get rough for them. Although they're talking about Quinn Hughes trades and they're talking about Steve Stamkos trades. I mean, the trade rumors out of New Jersey, and we have a little bit of a pipeline to New Jersey, and I can confirm that I'm hearing the same stuff that, yeah, New Jersey is burning cell phone minutes like they're going out of style, trying to upgrade and improve. I don't see how the Rangers can really improve, especially now with Adam Fox out. Let's just say they were to acquire Erik Gustafsson, who I also can confirm that Detroit was not willing to trade him to the Penguins a month ago in exchange for a mid-round pick. Detroit wanted more. So the Rangers aren't going to, go big on Erik Gustafsson. And even if they did, that would be kind of funny because he's not going to elevate their game.
I was going to say, how much of an impact is he really going to have?
You've got Vincent Trocheck, maybe gruff, grumbling a little bit with Mike Sullivan. Mika Zibanejad doing the same thing. Like there's just the tiniest seeds of friction there between players and coach. I don't see the Rangers making a run here. And the Red Wings, they lack that A player. I mean, Dylan Larkin is a good number 1 center. He's fine. But in terms of number 1 centers, he's kind of average.
Yeah, and their goaltending is not good.
What I thought John Gibson was the answer there. I guess not.
No, he's actually not been very good at all. I mean, he's been splitting games recently.
Yeah, and and until New Jersey upgrades, they've just been so both snake bitten and inconsistent. Like Jacob Markstrom was supposed to be the answer.
Yep.
And he'll look like the answer, and then he won't. And then he does. And it just, everything about New Jersey seems to be off. Like there's just not a foundation there. They're scrambling, is kind of how I feel about them. And I kind of look at the Penguins, and for the ups and downs that Justin Brazo or the rest of the lineup might suffer, there's still Sidney Crosby.
Yeah.
And as long as he's healthy, I think they're the best of that bunch of teams.
Yeah. None of those teams you just mentioned have Sidney Crosby, Evgeny Malkin, Erik Karlsson. None of those teams have guys like that. And I mean, at this point in the season, that Crosby and Malkin have the same amount of points, and I think they're in the top 20 in the NHL in points, and obviously Crosby's top 5 in goals. I mean, I didn't see it coming. I mean,
no. And I'll tell you, like I mentioned towards the top of the show, what a good mood Sidney Crosby was in yesterday. I mean, he's laughing and smiling. He's talking about the Olympics like, I don't care where we let's just play. 3 feet will make a difference. Yep. But frozen lake, parking lot, he's in.
Yeah.
And the winning and playing around with Ben Kindle and being one of the kids or one of the guys, whatever it is, it's a pretty good situation. The Penguins, despite me grabbing a shovel last Saturday night, Sunday, when the Toronto Maple Leafs just clobbered them, I thought that was the end, Vince. I honest to God said, okay. And the bottom dropped out.
And
it didn't.
I went to that game as a fan. One of my buddies was in town. He comes to one game a year. That was one of the worst games I've ever, I don't want to say ever seen in person, because I've been covering the Penguins for 25 years. So I've seen.
You and I sat through Generation Next and all that. Yes.
But
yeah.
Boy, that was one of the worst games I've seen in the last 10 years. That was bad.
Well, it wasn't quite as bad as the drubbing December 17th of 2023, when they lost 7-0 on Hockey Night in Canada, and they were ripping each other in the locker room. And it wasn't quite that bad up in Toronto, but it was
rough.
It was ugly. And yet 48 hours later, they all but manhandled the Philadelphia Flyers. Go figure.
Like you said, I had the shovel ready. It wasn't near the mound of dirt, but it was.
I dug into it. I will full on admit that maybe I jumped the gun a little bit in shovel. I had to actually grab the shovel and then take the dirt back.
Yeah. I mean, nobody, I don't blame you for it. I mean, that was just a really, really bad performance.
And it was on the heels of a really bad performance that turned out to be a win in Columbus, on the heels of getting just whitewashed against Minnesota, on the heels of a really bad game that they collapsed against the Seattle Kraken. And I was like, okay, that's a handful of games. We're seeing it. And I was wrong. Yeah,
it's actually kind of funny that Minnesota game and the Toronto game are literally probably 2 of the worst games that they've played. And we'll just say that the last 5 years, but they're in a playoff spot right now. They've probably played 2 of the worst games that I've seen in the last 5 years during this season, but they're still in a playoff spot. So
that's all I think you need to say. Yep. That is Vince Comunale. I am Dan Kingerski. Like, share, subscribe, download. Skywrite for us if you're willing to. You can hang some posters on some light poles and do all of that fun stuff. No Pucks Given, episode 42. We'll, of course, I think I will be able to, since there's actually some home games.
Yeah.
I will actually be at my home for more than a few days consecutively.
That's wild. Wait until February when they're on the Olympic break.
Actually, I might travel just to, I don't know how to make my own bed anymore. I have to have someone come in. Anyway, all right, that's Vince Comunale. I'm Dan Kingerski. It's been a blast. In the meantime, have fun.